Welcome into another episode of the Inside Voice podcast. If you are new around here, my name is Jess, and I am so glad that you have joined us. And hopefully you'll continue to join us as the weeks and the months and the years go on. I don't know about you, I follow good news accounts on social media. I'm trying to curate my social media to be more influential and positive and encouraging rather than a doom scroll every time I get on there. I'm trying to work the algorithm to work in my favor. And I love there's certain accounts that I follow that do a recap of good news that happened throughout the week. So I thought I would share just maybe something fun and good and wholesome or something at the beginning of the podcast, just to put us on a good note, start us off on the right foot. If you're a millennial like I am, you may recall, as a kid, all we talked about and all that was messaged to us, and the messaging that we got on, in commercials and with all of our Nickelodeon and Disney Channel kids was ozone layer stuff, right? If we weren't being told to recycle and singing cute songs about recycling, it was the ozone layer was a big thing. Don't do anything to harm the ozone layer, right? Well, good news this week. We're doing it. The ozone layer is healing. In a rare environmental success story, scientists confirm the ozone layer is on track to recover in the coming decades. The improvement is largely credited to the Montreal Protocol, a global agreement that phased out ozone-depleting chemicals beginning in the late 1980s. Hey, that was when millennials started entering the world. The messaging worked. Congratulations, Nickelodeon. The steady recovery stands as one of the clearest examples of international cooperation producing measurable environmental results. See what happens when we all come together? We all just do a little bit and it makes a big impact. I am a huge advocate for little things adding up to make big differences. If you've been a part of the Inside Voice podcast, you know that is one of my big things is small, consistent things make the biggest impact. So I love seeing something like that. And another article I saw that was related to that is that it's actually healing a lot faster than they thought it would. So it's a win for humanity. Springtime is upon us. Hopefully you'll be enjoying more time outside in warmer temperatures, hopefully in sunshine, enjoying that healing ozone layer. I am somebody that, for whatever reason, I just feel if there's work to be done around the house, I'm probably going to do it myself. If it can be done by me. And it's silly, let's be honest. We have flower beds that run the length of our house in the front. We have a pretty long house. And what I have learned is that A, I don't have a green thumb, and B, I get really frustrated when I have to do the yard work. I enjoy it to a certain extent because it's I'm getting a little workout in, a little cardio action here, but also it is a daunting task. And so I've been spending time outside working on those flower beds. We have 20 shrubs that go the length of our house. And then we have these two trees that seem to love to grow overly yeah. It's frustrating. Everything grows so quickly in good conditions, like these spring conditions that we're getting. And it's a lot of work. So, but I say that because as I've been out working in the yard, there's so many metaphors that you can draw from gardening and doing yard work and, caring for things like that, exercising your green thumb, so many metaphors that you can draw from that are for life. We've talked about this on the podcast before, this idea that your life is a garden, your dreams are a garden, you've got to get out there and you've got to tend to them. And as I was out there this past weekend, I actually did it in phases rather than trying to do it all on a Saturday. That was very helpful. And it was a great reminder that not everything is going to be accomplished in one go. The ozone layer is not going to be healed in one go around, just because we made one good decision. But I had this revelation. I want to do a series on spring, and I want to do a series that we're starting today of just how to cultivate a life that you love, a life that is fulfilling to you. The Inside Voice podcast is all about tapping into who you are created and designed to be and letting that person out, living that life, living as that person that you were always meant to be, and getting to the end of your life and feeling like, yeah, I lived. I was fulfilled. I was happy. I was joyful. Life was not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but man, it was a good life. And I have less regrets than I thought I would. I've got more stories to tell than I thought I would, more joyful experiences, more risks that I took, that, maybe they paid off, maybe they didn't. And so as we're looking to cultivate that life, as we're looking to lean into what we want to do with our lives, who we want to be, who we were designed to be, what our purpose is, what our calling is in life, I want you to think about your life or a goal that you're pursuing as a garden or as my lovely flower beds out front that hopefully are going to be immaculate this year. They always look really good at the beginning, like after I mulch or after I plant things, but it's like the process of keeping up with it that tends to trip me up a little bit. But let's start at the very beginning, because a lot of what I was doing in the yard this past weekend, I think is going to lay the groundwork for what we're talking about today. And that is preparing for the soil, preparing the soil, preparing for the blooms, preparing for the harvest. There's a lot of work that goes into just getting ready to plant something good that I think a lot of people just want to bypass. We don't want to look at the weeds. We don't want to look at the rocks. We don't want to look at the overgrowth or, the messiness of the yard or the garden. We just want to get to the good stuff. We want to put the pretty flowers in. Well, the pretty flowers are not going to survive if the environment around it has not been cultivated and prepared for them to thrive in. So we're talking about preparation today. We're talking about getting in there, getting your hands dirty, and getting rid of the stuff that is going to hinder you in the early stages of whatever you're chasing, and definitely in the later stages as well. We want to get rid of the stuff that is holding us back in life. And it's going to get messy. So like some of the stuff that I was doing this past weekend was pulling the weeds, cutting off the dead stuff, digging out like rocks and stuff like that, getting rid of pests and nuisances that are going to strangle anything that I try to plant in the future, really just getting things ready for cultivation, getting things ready to plant. And so there's some things in your life that you're going to have to dig out, regardless if you've got a specific goal that you're chasing or if you just want to have a more meaningful, fulfilling life. If you want to experience more joy in your life, there's a little bit of work that you're going to have to do before you start throwing in a lot of fun and good things. And that's going to take you sitting down and taking inventory of the things in your life that might be holding you back. So some things that you're going to have to dig out are the dead things. You're going to have to take back any of the things that didn't make it through a winter season, anything that didn't survive the last time that you planted it last year. You're going to have to get rid of those things. You got to dig in and pull out what doesn't work anymore. You might be in a phase in your life. Maybe you've entered a new decade, like you're in your 30s now, your 40s now, your 50s now, and you're thinking, I don't want to do life the way that I've done life for the last several years. The way I'm doing it just isn't working for me. And if I were to zoom out and look at how I'm operating day to day, this ain't it. This ain't it, sis. This ain't it, bro. Like, I want to do more. I want to experience more. I want to have more fulfillment, more vibrancy in my life. I shared with you that my word this year is vibrant. And so a lot of what I've been doing this year is taking note of habits and routines and things on the daily, on the monthly, overarching things that just aren't working for me anymore. They're not pushing me to what I ultimately want in life. And you can do that on a short-term thing, like what do I want to do this year? You can do that in a long-term thing, like what's going to happen the next 5 years, the next 10 years. We talked last week about transition and how I feel like there's this feeling of transit that's coming our way. Like there's this idea that we're all moving towards something, and we see this coming with AI. This new technology that's coming in, it's changing things so rapidly. So even if you don't want to change, there's probably going to be some things that will change. Certainly within the next decade, probably within the next 5 years. And so taking stock of, what could come and how you can be best showing up in the change is definitely going to be beneficial. And a lot of that is just taking away things that no longer work anymore. I don't see many people operating on a rotary phone anymore just because it doesn't fit anymore. It doesn't work anymore. So you're going to have to pull out, old habits, lazy routines. You're going to have to trim off some dead parts. I think about the shrubs that I have out there. We had a freeze that came through in early February. And you got to cut that stuff off. Otherwise, the growth underneath is never going to have a chance to see the sun and get the nutrients that it needs in order to grow. So you got to get rid of that dead stuff. You got to get rid of, plans that were well intentioned, but they failed. Goals that you set with the best of intentions and with the highest of hopes, but ultimately they did not work out. It's time to trim off the dead things that didn't work, get back to the drawing board and figure out what is going to work in the future. And getting rid of that dead stuff and pulling out all of that brush, all of that stuff that has not survived and is not serving you anymore is going to be a huge part of that. You're also going to have to get rid of the weeds. And I got to tell you, pulling weeds, I hate it. I was going to say something a lot worse than that, but I do not like it. It's the worst, These weeds, they just come in, they pop up out of nowhere, they seem to multiply overnight, and it can be a very daunting task. And a lot of weed prevention is simply just weed maintenance, making sure that you're out there consistently getting these weeds out of there. But when you've got a season like winter where you're not out there consistently, you're kind of just letting it all do its own thing. And then spring rolls around, you're going to have to go through and get rid of all those weeds. And you're also going to have to put out what do they call it? Is it pre-emergent or emergent? But you put something out there that prevents the weeds from growing in the first place. It makes the environment, it makes the soil not ideal for them to grow in. You know what I mean? Without killing the plants that you already have. So some things that you're going to have to get rid of that are weeds are things that are suffocating the dreams that you've already started chasing, the goals that you've set for yourself, the things that are just hindering it, the things that are causing you to stumble or slip up or, fall into old habits again, temptations even. These are the things that you're going to have to weed out, It could be the snooze button that you can't seem to leave alone, you always snooze, you're always late getting out of bed because the bed is just too comfortable. And so it leaves you chasing that time for the rest of the day. It's like you didn't have that. If you would have just gotten up when you were supposed to, you wouldn't be chasing that extra 15, 20, 30 minutes for the rest of the day. And by chasing it, I mean you're always just feeling like you're behind. But if you would have gotten up on time, you would have had that time. You know what I mean? I hate when I accidentally snooze. I'm pretty good at just getting up when my alarm goes off. After years of getting up at the same time pretty much every single day, I get up, I roll over and I start, waking up a little bit, a couple minutes before my alarm. So it's a little bit easier for me to get out of bed. But if you're setting a new intention of getting up earlier to work out or getting up earlier to enjoy a cup of coffee before your kids wake up and it's just chaos, it can take some time getting used to that alarm going off and actually getting out of bed. So weeding out the opportunity to snooze is going to be paramount for you if it comes, when it comes to you setting that new habit of getting up earlier and ultimately, chasing after the things that you want in life. A lot of times you get up earlier so you can get the things done that you want to get done. I just had a meeting with somebody who's an author because, I want to write a book. And he said that, he was squeezing in writing a book whenever he could. And it might have been, an extra 30 minutes in the morning. Sometimes people get up earlier in the morning or carve out some time in the evening because they got something important that they want to do. It's the only time that they have. So weed out the snooze button. It could be binge watching. I just started watching Paradise on Hulu and I have had to limit myself to one episode. Like, episode ends, I'm going to treat it like I grew up as a millennial. Like, you don't get the next episode until next week or until tomorrow, you know? Like, you don't get to just binge until the cows come home. We didn't grow up doing that as millennials, you know? Gosh, if we wanted to binge something, it was because it was a marathon on Disney Channel and mom just happened to put it on a VHS. That was binge watching for us. Binge watching could be suffocating the goals that you've set for yourself because it's wasting your time. It's sucking up all your time that you could be devoting to something else. And it may not even be like a goal that you have. It might just be it's sucking up the time that you could have with your kids, or, talking on the phone with your mom, or, investing in other people. It could be that. It could be, sucking up time that you could spend meal prepping for yourself. If you're somebody that's trying to eat healthier this year, binge watching may not be helping you with that because it's so easy just to order DoorDash and binge watch, right? It's harder to say I get one episode and then I'm getting in that kitchen and I'm prepping healthy meals for myself this week. Maybe you can binge watch while you're doing that. Doom scrolling can be another weed that you need to get rid of, chasing that high of feeling enraged or upset at something that you saw online. Like, that can be an addiction that you chase and a high that you're chasing. That's an emotion, right? Sometimes we get attached to things that stimulate an emotion in us, right? It hits that like dopamine effect, if you will. You might need to get rid of doom scrolling because not only is it putting you in a negative state, but it's also, again, a time suck, and it's keeping you from the things that you really want to do with your life. I sometimes I look back at my week and I'm like, where did the time go? And I'm like, oh, I know where it went. It went to social media, and my phone tells me that I spent, 5 hours a day on my phone. 5 hours a day? I can sit there and say like, oh, I have to be on social media for my job. I work in country music. I'm covering these country artists. Of course, I have to know what they're doing, right? And the easiest way to do that is social media. Well, after I've checked in with our artists that tend to do the best for us in articles and social, when we post on social media, after I've checked in with them, I've wasted another 30 minutes just scrolling or on that explore page. Like, it's ridiculous. Weeding that out. We got to weed it out. And we have to set some things in stone, like that pre-emergent, like the pre-treatment to prevent those weeds from growing again in the future. So you might have to set some limitations for yourself. You might have to set some parental controls for yourself. I know it sounds so silly because you're thinking, I'm an adult. Nobody needs to tell me when to be on social media, when not to be on social media. I can tell myself that. And yet we still have this addiction to our phone and this addiction to social media, and it isn't until we've wasted an hour thinking it was only 20 minutes that we're like, oh, actually, this might be a problem. So yeah, get honest with yourself of like, how can I prevent these weeds from growing again in the future? And some of those limitations, some of those screen time limitations, might be a part of that. And then sticking to it. Oh my goodness. I can't tell you how many times I have set like a reminder in my phone or a wind down setting in my phone for later in the day. Like, one of the things that I'm trying to do is be off my phone at 7 p.m. and like go read or just do something else that is not sitting on my phone, right? Maybe that's when I can watch Paradise. I don't know. But I can't tell you how many times that alarm goes off or that thing goes off on my phone that says, hey, it's time to start winding down. And I'm like, yeah, you tell me. Oh, man. Sometimes the hard part is not setting the limit. It's actually sticking to the limit. But, weeding out things that are ultimately going to destroy the beautiful garden that you're trying to create, the beautiful life that you're trying to create, because those weeds are going to start becoming overgrown. And even though some of those weeds, look pretty, you're still going to have to get rid of them. All right. You're still going to have to dig down into the root and figure out how to get rid of them in general. And a lot of that comes down to, we talk about social media and what you're going to for social media. That's the root, what is causing the behavior in the first place? Identifying what that is and maybe trying to meet that behavioral demand another way would be beneficial, like digging in and saying, okay, I'm going to social media because I'm looking for something, whether it's connection, whether it is, sometimes I go to social media because I want to feel inspired or motivated, like I follow accounts that naturally do that for me, but it can easily turn into comparison, so you got to be careful of that. But ultimately, you might also go to social media because you do want to feel an emotion, whether that emotion is good or bad. If you're bored, you might be looking for something that gives you that high of attention or stimulus, like an emotional stimulus. I think that's a very real thing. So maybe identifying what need you're trying to have met on social media would be beneficial in understanding how to get rid of that habit in the first place, how to rid yourself of that weed. So things that I'm looking to weed out, and maybe this can be some inspiration for you. I mean, I think doom scrolling, we've definitely beat that horse. Emotionally charged decisions. I am one of those people that I can emotionally eat, and it can be out of boredom, it can be out of frustration, it can be out of loneliness. I do find comfort in food, but any kind of emotion or any kind of decision that I make that is based on emotions, I'm trying to weed that out. Not sending the text message when I feel all worked up about it, not sitting down to record something or do this podcast when I have had an emotional day or something that really frustrated me or got under my skin. Maybe I thought I was done with work and then that last minute email comes in. You're just like, don't respond to the email when you're feeling like that. Those emotionally charged decisions, not good. And I've also had to learn on that same note, and something that I'm trying to weed out is not sharing my emotions. Growing up, I feel like my relationship with my mom and the way that I operated in my home was very much like push the emotions down just to keep peace. Like I can do that so well, even in adulthood, but it's something that I learned as a kid. So understanding that keeping those emotions in, just stuffing them down is not good, but also exploding with those emotions as soon as I feel them is also not good. So trying to figure out how to understand the emotions and communicate those emotions, that's what I'm trying to do. So those emotionally charged decisions, weeding those out, rewarding or punishing myself unnecessarily. That can be, I think a lot of this with like fitness and nutrition, because again, food is good, temptations come around, and I love a cheeseburger. I love a milkshake, I love the French fries, all that jazz. If I eat that every single day, not good. If I have it every once in a while, it's not the end of the world. And understanding that and giving myself grace in that, that's something that I'm trying to weed out, is that over punishment, but also the over rewarding. I mean, there's times when I'll have like a good couple of days of eating and then I'm like, I can eat whatever I want on this day. It's like, no. We're all about consistency. Like, let's not get crazy here. You're not that good. Weeding out believing that if I can't do it all, I shouldn't do any of it. This, what really resonates in my mind saying that out loud is, with keeping the house clean or something like that. Rather than thinking, oh, if I can't clean the entire house on this Saturday, I shouldn't clean any of it. It's more like, what can I do in this moment? You know what I mean? What steps can I take in this project that I'm working on that I can do today? I may not be able to do the whole project today, but what are some things that I can do with this time that I have that would move me further in that project? It's so much better to do what you can rather than trying to do it all at once, or not at all because you can't do it all at once. You know what I mean? Also, negative thoughts. We talked about this last week. I think this is something that we all struggle with, and getting these out of your garden, getting these out of your life, so incredibly important. Last week we talked about me just sitting down and writing down all these negative things that were going through my mind, and how it went from me writing them from first person to then writing them, second person? Yeah, second person. And it was like, these thoughts weren't even coming from me. They were being thrown at me from the enemy. They were being thrown at me from Satan, the father of lies. These were not truths that came from God. These were made up things that I was just ruminating on. You know what I mean? So those are definitely that's definitely something that you can get out of the garden. Figure out how to recognize when those negative thoughts are coming in, when those weeds are starting to sprout, they're starting to bud, they're starting to poke through the beautiful mulch that you put out there. That's when you need to attack them. That's when you need to get them out. So remember, while you're preparing to plant beautiful things in your life, as we're looking at our life as a garden, as we're looking at, pursuing goals as our garden, what are things that we're going to plant and hopefully prosper and grow into something beautiful? As you're preparing the soil, as you're getting rid of the things that can hinder what you are trying to accomplish, understand that it's going to get dirty and it's going to get messy. You've got to get to the root of these things that are suffocating your life, the root of these things that are actually pulling you down. Like they're weighing you down and keeping you from pursuing what you actually want in life, the goals and dreams that you've set for yourself, the calling that you feel that you have on your life. And also understand it's going to take time. It is going to take time for you to get through all of this stuff. You may not be able to do it all at once. Just like me out there working in the garden. I keep pointing this way because literally that's the front of the house. That's where the garden is. But don't rush this process. I know for me that if I rush through and I think I'm pulling the weeds, but I'm not actually getting to the root, if I rush through and I don't put a good layer of mulch down, there's going to be problems in the future. Those weeds are going to come through, the things that I am trying to plant are not going to have the nutrients or the protections that they need because I haven't properly prepared the environment that they're going to grow in. So again, when it comes to your life and, you looking to push through and create the life that you want, cultivate the life that you want. When it comes to each goal that you're setting for yourself, this month or next month or this year or 10 years from now, whatever goal you're setting for yourself, just understand it's going to take time for you to prepare the environment, for you to get rid of the things that are going to hinder you. This might be an ongoing process, and actually it should be an ongoing process, because again, just because you prepare once doesn't mean that soil is going to be ready every single year. I think of farmers, like they're always doing something throughout the year to make sure that the crops that they want to produce are the crops that they produce, that the harvest is bountiful. You know what I mean? And isn't that what you want your life to be? You want your life to be bountiful. So it's going to take preparation. It's going to take checking in on it and being consistent with it. And it's going to take this process over and over and over and over again. It's going to be a cycle of you constantly analyzing, is this helping me or hurting me? Is this a weed? Is this a flower? Because there's some pretty weeds out there. I'll be honest with you. There are some that I'm like, oh, that's nice and green. That looks nice and vibrant in this, garden that doesn't look so vibrant because the flowers I planted died. But ultimately, those weeds are invasive. They are problematic. They rob the plants of nutrients and water and sunshine and everything that they need to grow, and they just have to go. So be aware of the things that are happening in your life. Consistently take stock of those things, consistently look around in your life and say, is this working for me? Is this not working for me? It's almost like the Marie Kondo effect, the Marie Kondo process of, does this bring me joy? Like take stock of the things in your life. Like, is this working? Is this not working? Is this helping me? Is this hindering me? Is this what God has for me? Is this not what God has for me? That's something that we are going to do for the rest of our lives. There's always going to be things coming in and trying to take away from us or hurt us or harm us. We live in a fallen world. There's gonna be tough times that come around. There's gonna be tough seasons. Gosh, don't even get me started on, how the weather affects this garden that we're trying to grow. But you can't control the weather, but you can control how you prepare for those storms, how you prepare for those weeds coming in, and ultimately, how you get rid of the stuff that has also died in your garden, the stuff that did not work. It's dead. It's buried. It's in the past. There's nothing you can do to change it. You can't revive it. Hello, I'm not Jesus. When my roses die out there, they're dead. I'm not bringing them back. You know what I mean? So yeah, I would encourage you this week, if you truly think about the life that you want, if you truly think about the goals that you're pursuing, what are the things that are hurting you right now? What are the dead things that need to go? What are the weeds that are starting to come in and take control of what you've been working on and what you're pursuing? And start preparing for more good things to come into your life, more good things for you to plant as well. So that's your homework for the week, is just take stock of things that could be holding you back, things that could be hindering you. Make it a good week for yourself. We'll see you next week.